the sweet summer that soured. The first week of summer had been perfect. The kind of perfect that smells like fresh-cut grass and sounds like kids' laughter carried by the warm breeze. My two children, Emily, aged 10, and Josh, aged 8, had spent months talking about their big summer business idea. It wasn't anything fancy, just a bright yellow lemonade stand at the end of our driveway, complete with hand-painted signs, a fold-out table, and a jug of fresh-squeezed lemonade that they took turns proudly stirring. They had dreamed of it during the long winter months, and for them, this wasn't just about selling lemonade. It was about independence, responsibility, the feeling of being part of the neighborhood in a way that wasn't just riding bikes or drawing with chalk on the sidewalk. The plan was simple. Sell lemonade for $1 a cup, save up for a new swing set by the end of the summer. The first day was everything they had hoped for. Neighbors walking their dogs stopped by to buy a drink, people slowed down in their cars to wave and smile, and even the mailman pulled out $1 to grab a cup. Emily kept track of the sales in a little spiral notebook, and Josh made it his job to advertise by dancing around with a sign at the corner. They came home that evening with a jar full of crumpled bills and coins, beaming like they'd just conquered the world. But by the second day, the atmosphere changed. It was late morning when I first noticed her. Karen. She lived 2 houses down, in a perfectly manicured 2-story that looked like it had been cut out of a real estate magazine. Her yard was immaculate, but it always looked sterile, like no one ever actually lived there. I had seen her before, usually when she was glaring at someone for parking too close to her driveway or muttering about how the neighborhood wasn't what it used to be. That morning, I caught her standing at the end of her driveway, arms folded tightly, watching my kids. Not smiling, not curious, just watching. The kind of look that feels like it has an agenda. I tried to brush it off. Maybe she was just wondering what was going on. Maybe she was bored. But later that afternoon, as more people stopped to buy a drink, Karen marched across the street, bypassing me completely, and went straight to Emily and Josh. I didn't hear what she said, but I saw the way their faces fell, and I saw her pointing toward our driveway with sharp, stabbing gestures. By the time I walked over, she was already turning away, her expression smug and satisfied. Emily quietly told me that Karen had said they were blocking the sidewalk and that selling things without a license was against the law. She told them they had to pack up or she'd call someone. We didn't pack up. I knew that in our city, kids' lemonade stands were a summertime tradition, not a crime. But the encounter rattled the kids. They went from excited chatter to quiet sips of their own lemonade, eyes flicking nervously toward Karen's house. The third day, she escalated. It was just after lunchtime when a police cruiser rolled slowly into our street. The officer stepped out, his expression calm but professional, and asked to speak with me. Apparently, someone had called in a complaint about unlicensed vending on public property. The officer glanced at the little table, the paper cups, the jar of coins, and shook his head slightly. He explained that technically the stand was on our driveway, which meant it was private property, and there was no violation. He even bought a cup before leaving, telling the kids to keep up the good work. But the damage was done. My kids were crushed. They didn't understand why someone would call the police on them for selling lemonade. That night, Emily cried into her pillow, and Josh muttered something about just giving up. That's when something in me shifted. I'd been willing to let it go before. I thought maybe Karen was just having a bad day or that she'd get over it. But calling the police on 2 kids trying to run a lemonade stand, that wasn't just petty, it was malicious. So I decided I wasn't going to let her ruin their summer. If she wanted to play games, I'd play too, but I'd play smarter. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention. I noticed her coming and going at odd hours. I saw the way she always parked her car halfway across the sidewalk, forcing pedestrians into the street. I noticed the second shed tucked behind her house, a structure I didn't remember from the approved HOA plans. The more I watched, the more I realized Karen wasn't the rule-abiding neighbor she pretended to be. She was breaking rules herself, and if she wanted to drag my kids into her petty little power trip, I was going to drag her right back, using the one thing people like her fear most: proof. The summer had started sweet, but thanks to Karen, it had soured fast. What she didn't know yet was that I was about to turn it bitter for her too. And it all began the night I pulled out my old camera and started documenting everything.